Hey there, fellow explorer, and welcome to a special Espirito edition of the Deep Dive.
Espirito.
Yeah, Espirito Deep, you could say.
I like that.
You know, it's Italian for expert, so we're
Ah,
taking our expertise to the next level for you today.
I'm
Okay, so let's get right into it. We're talking about Machu Picchu today, and you've brought some excerpts from its Wikipedia page. Yeah, that's a great place to start. So we're going to unpack all of this, everything from what its name means to, how it was rediscovered. So we're going to find the most interesting stuff about this iconic Inca citadel.
yeah, the name Machu Picchu itself is actually pretty interesting. There's some debate about it among researchers.
Oh, really? I always thought it meant old mountain, from the Quechua words like Machu for old and Picchu for peak.
Right, yeah, that's the common understanding. But there was a study recently that suggests that the Incas might have actually called it Huayna Picchu.
Oh, why not Picchu?
Yeah, like that nearby peak. They found some evidence for this in some old maps and even in Bingham's notes. And there's some documents from the 16th century that talk about indigenous people. And they talk about going back to Huayna Picchu. So it
Hmm.
kind of makes you wonder, like, what other assumptions do we have about the site, you know?
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. I'm already rethinking everything I thought I knew.
Yeah,
It's almost like we're rediscovering Machu Picchu,
right.
all over again.
Yeah.
Speaking of rediscovering, let's go back in time, back to when Machu Picchu was a thriving city, and we used to think it was built around 1450 as a royal estate for the Inca Emperor Pachacuti.
Yeah, but more advanced dating techniques, they've actually pushed that timeline back even further.
Oh, wow.
Now they think that it was actually occupied from around 1420 to 1530.
Oh, wow.
So that spans both the reigns of Pachacuti and Tupac Inca Yupanqui.
Okay, so it was like a bustling hub for a lot longer than we originally thought. So what was it like to live in Machu Picchu back then? It's hard for me to even imagine.
Well, just picture this, a community of around 750 people.
Wow.
Right, a mix of like support staff and religious specialists and temporary workers. But it wasn't just, like some monotonous existence. Their stories, like the ones revealed by their skeletal remains, are really diverse. A lot of them were immigrants from different regions of Peru, and their bones actually hold clues about their origins.
Wait, hold on. Their bones can tell us where they came from.
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
Well, researchers found traces of water parasites that are unique to certain areas, and by analyzing the damage patterns in the bones, they can trace these individuals back to their home regions.
Wow.
They even found variations in their diets, indicating that people came from like both coastal and inland areas. So it was like a real mix of cultures within the Inca Empire.
Oh, wow. So it's really like a melting pot.
Mm.
So what about the overall lifestyle? Was it like a harsh life, filled with lots of backbreaking labor?
Well, interestingly enough, their skeletons actually show less arthritis and bone fractures compared to the people from other Inca sites. So this could mean that most of the residents were support staff or specialized workers, catering to the emperor's needs. So, maybe they weren't doing as much strenuous work as we think.
That's interesting. It's like a little glimpse into their daily lives.
Mm.
So it wasn't just people, though, right? There were animals there, too,
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely. Llamas and alpacas were probably brought in from higher altitudes, maybe for trade or transportation.
Hmm.
And guinea pigs were discovered in tune caves, which suggests they may have been used for rituals and sacrifices.
Huh.
And there were actually 6 dogs that were buried alongside humans, so maybe they were cherished companions, even in the afterlife.
Wow. It's amazing how these little details can really bring the past to life. So let's talk about the most striking feature of Machu Picchu. Those incredible terraces. The Addies, the Inca, were clearly brilliant engineers.
Oh, for sure. Those terraces weren't just for show, though.
Right.
They had a very important role for farming, and they protected the mountain from erosion.
But I was surprised to learn that those terraces, as impressive as they are, they couldn't have actually sustained the entire population.
Right.
So did they, like, import food?
Yeah, research suggests they mainly grew maize, which was crucial for ceremonies, and potatoes. But to feed everybody, they would have needed to rely on the bigger trade network, bringing in food from the surrounding valleys.
I see. And another thing that surprised me, I always thought that the terraces were irrigated. But apparently they get plenty of rainfall.
Exactly. Machu Picchu gets over 1,800 millimeters of rain every year.
Wow.
So irrigation wasn't really necessary. The terraces were actually designed for drainage with this clever layering of stones, gravel, and topsoil, to maximize water absorption and stability.
Wow.
It really shows how well they understood their environment and how they were able to work with it.
It's like they turned a potential problem, all that rain, into a solution.
Yeah, exactly.
So they weren't without their challenges, though, right? I read that there's evidence of landslides during the construction.
Right.
So they had to adapt. They had to find ways to stabilize the terraces.
Yeah, it shows that they were really resourceful. Even when they faced setbacks, this carefully constructed world, it existed for centuries until it was rediscovered by the Western world in the early 20th century, right? And that's when Hiram Bingham kind of comes into the story.
Right, Hiram Bingham.
Yeah, and the rediscovery of Machu Picchu it's a little bit complicated.
Yeah, I remember learning about him in school. He was that American explorer who stumbled upon the site in 1911.
Right. Yeah, he definitely brought it to the world's attention, but even that's debatable.
Really?
Yeah, because Bingham actually found an inscription on a temple wall, and it had the name Agustin Lizarraga and the date 1902.
Oh, wow.
So he might not have been the first outsider to actually see Machu Picchu.
Hmm. Wow. So the story goes even deeper than I thought, but Bingham did play like a key role in documenting and researching the site, right?
Yeah, he did, but his actions also caused a pretty big controversy. He removed thousands of artifacts from the site, and he took them to Yale University to study.
Oh, wow.
And that led to this decades-long dispute between Peru and Yale over who rightfully owned the artifacts.
Yeah, I can understand why Peru would want those treasures returned.
Oh, for sure. And it raises these important questions about cultural patrimony and, the ethics of removing artifact from their country of origin.
Right.
But thankfully, those artifacts were finally returned to Peru in 2012.
Oh, good.
So that ensures that these pieces of history stayed where they belong. But let's talk about the actual city's construction for a second, because you mentioned the terraces. But what about those massive stones?
Right. I can barely lift a suitcase up a flight of stairs.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling to think about how they moved those enormous stones without any modern technology.
Even today, their methods are still a source of fascination and debate. Just imagine hundreds of men using pure manpower and ropes and wooden rollers and levers just to move these stones up these inclines.
Yeah, I've seen documentaries where they try to recreate those techniques,
Right.
and it's still so difficult, even with modern tools.
Exactly. It really shows you how ingenious and organized the Inca were. And some of the stone, they actually even have these knobs that might have been used for leverage,
Huh.
but most of them were sended away for a smooth finish.
Hmm.
So, they really paid attention to detail.
Yeah, it makes you really appreciate all the effort and craftsmanship that went into every part of building Machu Picchu. So it wasn't just an isolated city, though, right? I read that they had this elaborate road system that connected them to other parts of the empire.
You're right. The Inca road system spanned thousands of miles, and it connected Machu Picchu to all these other important sites. These roads were essential for communication and trade, and the movement of people and goods.
So even though it was a royal estate, Machu Picchu was still very connected to the wider Inca world.
Exactly. And they even found some non-local artifacts, like obsidian nodules at the entrance gate.
Hmm.
And analysis showed that those obsidian pieces, they actually came from the Titicaca region, which is hundreds of miles away.
Wow.
So it shows just how far their trade networks extended.
It's really amazing to think about those routes that people took back then, traveling on foot along those incredible roads. Of course, today, we have different ways of getting to the site. The train journey seems to be like the most popular option.
Yeah, a lot of people take the train from Cusco or Ollantaytambo, and they arrive in Aguascalientes, which is the town at the base of the mountain.
Right,
And then there's the Inca Trail,
Right.
which is that multi-day hike
right.
through the stunning landscapes, and it all leads to that breathtaking first view of Machu Picchu from the Sun Gate.
I've heard that the Inca Trail is on a lot of people's bucket lists, but I imagine it's got to be pretty challenging.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a tough trick, but it's totally worth it. You get to kind of experience the journey as the Inca might have. You walking through ancient ruins and immersing yourself in the beauty of the Andes. Speaking of the Inca, we've talked a lot about their engineering and infrastructure,
Right.
but what about their daily lives? What was it actually like to live in Machu Picchu?
That's what I'm really curious about. Like, what did they do all day? What were their beliefs? Did they have like a strong sense of community? It's almost like trying to put together a puzzle, but we don't have all the pieces.
Yeah, it is. It's like a puzzle. But the Inca didn't leave us with any written records.
Right.
So we have to kind of rely on the archaeological evidence and the architecture and, comparisons with other Inca sites.
So what can like the layout of the city tell us about their daily routines and their social structure?
Well, Machu Picchu is divided into these different sectors. The upper town had temples and ceremonial structures, so that suggests that was the domain of like religious and elite activities. And then the lower town was probably residential. That's where everyday life happened.
So it's like a miniature model of Inca society with this separation between like the sacred and the mundane.
Exactly. And within those sectors, you have these long, narrow compounds. They're called conchas.
Conchas.
Yeah, and these might have housed extended families or groups of people with shared roles. So we can picture them sharing meals together, working together, participating in rituals as like a unit, you know?
So it sounds like a really tight-knit community. And what about those intricate water channels and fountains that are all over the city? They seem like they're more than just a practical necessity.
Right. They definitely show the Incas' deep reverence for water.
Hmm.
Water wasn't just important for survival, it was symbolic, spiritual. So you can imagine people gathering at these fountains, not just to collect water, but to socialize, share stories, perform ritual.
So the fountains were like the social hubs of Machu Picchu.
Yeah.
And speaking of rituals, we have to talk about those sacred sites, like the Intihuatana,
Right.
the hitching post to the sun.
Yeah, that stone, they think it aligned with the sun during the solstices.
Hmm.
So it shows how important astronomy was in Inca beliefs. They probably gathered there for ceremonies, maybe made offerings, celebrated key agricultural events.
Wow. It must have been really powerful to witness those solar alignments from such an amazing place.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the Temple of the Sun,
Right.
with its precise construction and the astronomical alignments, which again shows their understanding of the cosmos. It seems like they're really connected to the natural world.
Oh, absolutely. And while the Inca didn't leave us with written accounts, the stones of Machu Picchu tell their own stories about their beliefs and their daily lives and their relationship with nature.
It really is amazing how much we can learn from just these remnants of the past. Machu Picchu is so much more than just some ruins. It's like this portal to another time, another way of life, a testament to Inca ingenuity.
Mm-hmm.
And while we've learned so much, there's still so much more to discover.
Definitely. New research and new discoveries are happening all the time, and they're constantly changing what we know about this place.
So you've learned today that Machu Picchu is more than just a breathtaking ruin. It's this place that really makes you think and question things and connect with this civilization that thrived centuries ago. And now you have all the knowledge you need to dive deeper into the mysteries of this lost city on your own.